Welcome to Yerushalmi Peah, Daf Mem in the Osohader print. I want to just say that today, what we're going to discuss is kind of the classic conundrum of the Yerushalmi, which is basically where we know what the Bavli holds clearly. We're not sure what the Yerushalmi holds, and then you have this basic dispute of, do you go with the pashtus of the words and say there is machlokas, and the Yerushalmi is totally taking a different approach, or do you try to fit in the Bavli and Yerushalmi together? And it's a classic thing. So basically, by the way, the Mishnayos now start talking about, we moved on from Peah a little bit, and now we're actually in Leka and Shikha, which, for Prakim, we're finally having some halachas of Leka and Shikha. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap between them, and there's a lot to say about that, so hang tight with this. So basically, the simple reading of the Brisa, the Gemara says, Tani, the Leka Ketzircha, the Torah says that you have to give Leket of the reapings. That's what you shall not gather that. That goes to Aniyim. So this teaches us that it only applies when you cut with a sickle, lo kol hakotzer biyado, but not with what you pluck in your hand. Now, remember, if you read the Mishnah, so the Mishnah says this exact halacha, well, actually, it seems to say the opposite, which is toch hayad v'toch hamagol la'aniyim. Whatever falls within your hand and within the sickle, go to the poor people. Achar yad v'achar hamagol l'balabaya. So basically, it's like this. The simple reading is that if something is normally harvested with a tool, for example, grain, you don't go to the field and rip out stalks of grain. So then leket only applies in that case if while you were using the sickle, while you were using the instrument. Whereas if something is normally harvested by hand, like for example onions, which you don't go and use a tool, you just pull them out. Now, obviously, nowadays there are machines, but we're talking about agricultural standards back then, which is what determined it. So how that would apply nowadays is beyond the scope of this conversation, as we talked about when we first started the Masechta. So so then when you drop it, obviously, if you drop an onion, even though you weren't using a kli to harvest it, it still counts. So here's the problem. The problem is that in the Bavli and Chuin, Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph, so there's an explicit Machlokes Tanaim, or actually Amoram, as to whether leket applies when you reap something in an unusual way. And the Bavli says explicitly that Rabbi Yossi, Machlokes Tanaim, Rabbi Yossi holds that leket is only applicable when you do it in a normal way, and the Chachamim say that even if you pluck the grain, so then it would not apply there. So the simple reading of the Yerushalmi is that it's arguing with this, and it says explicitly this is just every Tani, the Brisa taught, leket ketzircha lo kol hakotzer biyado, that if you do it in an unusual way, it does not count. However, again, if you look in the Pnei Moshe, so he says this is a whole different, he reads the whole Gemara differently. He says that Tani leket ketzircha lo kol hakotzer biyado, lo kol ma sheyesh min hakatzir biyado, afilo nafal biyado. The issue here is whether you drop something by accident, whether that counts. It's only that you dropped it in the process of trying to harvest it. So he skirts the whole issue. But again, then the Mishnah is quoted later, and again it seems to say this exact same thing. We find the same thing. Uperet karmacha, when it comes to grapes, that again grapes are usually harvested with a kli, with a vessel, a tool, I should say. So lo kol hapor, again, it seems to say explicitly not if you do it with your hands. So that's one way of reading it. And again, the simple reading is that the Bavli holds its Machlokes Tanam, and the Yerushalmi takes it as pashut, that it's only the normal way of harvesting that counts, and if you do it any other way, it does not count. There's a gra. There's a whole different way of reading it in Shnos Elio, Ayin Sham, and I'm not going to go into the exact details, but again, it's the classic kind of conundrum of reading the Yerushalmi's words and not knowing what it's exactly saying, and also trying to figure out, do you have to fit it with the Bavli, do you have to try to make it say something different with the Yerushalmi than the Bavli. So anyway, Ayin Sham, and enjoy.